Thank you everybody for joining us. This is the 10th episode of our Technology Role Models series. I'm joined by Julie Bishop today, who has an extremely interesting career to discuss. So hi, Julie.
Hi, Kevin.
Hi. Could you just start by introducing yourself, explaining to our audience a little bit more about what your current role is and who you are?
Hi, so I'm Julie Bishop. I have my own IT company, an IT infrastructure company. I formed the company with a business partner about a year and a half ago, and we are based in Peterborough. I've got a team of 30 incredibly talented guys who know what they're doing, that work for us, and it's the first time I've ever owned a business, and I'm really loving it, really enjoying it.
Excellent. How do you find, so we'll talk about this in a short while, obviously the fact that you've had an employed IT leadership career before you set up this business. How have you found it being different, running your own organisation to managing teams on behalf of somebody else?
The final choice is always yours, and that's really empowering at times and also quite overwhelming at times. So, for instance, when COVID came in, we had to react really quickly, make decisions quickly without government guidance initially about what we were going to do with our teams, how we were going to manage working from home, things like that. So you're the ultimate decision maker, and I certainly have an incredible sense of responsibility to the team. So I'm responsible for providing employment for 30 people and therefore payment for them, for their families, and that's quite an onerous responsibility.
Yeah. Does that mean more workload, longer hours?
Yes, it does. So you're never off duty. So my company does IT service management. So we have people working 24/7. So whenever, any time of day or night, there are people that are being paid to work for us. So I'm always feeling that, yes, I need to be available if things happen. And for our clients, our biggest client is an international airline. And if there's a major incident at any time of the day or night, most of the time, or always the team can sort it. But every now and then I feel the need to go on and to support them. I mean, we had one, I contacted the team on Christmas Day. I contacted them early in the morning because we had a night shift, works till 7 a.m. and the day shift come on. So at 5:30, I thought, I'm awake. Father Christmas has been, I'm awake now. So I went and contacted the guys that were working to discover there was a major incident starting. So then I stayed working for the next few hours before that got resolved.
Wow, Merry Christmas to you.
We resolved it before the airline reported it, so that was our monitoring was really good. We discovered it from monitoring tools.
Cool. So yeah, thanks for that description of where you are today. I imagine it's not a position that you saw yourself being in, when your career started. So if we start with your education, you did a civil engineering degree.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Which in itself is, not typically seen as the course that women go on. Were you a minority in that course at the time?
Yeah. So I was the only girl on the course. So 40 students, and I was the only girl. And that wasn't really an issue with the guys. They were great to work with. I enjoyed working with them, but I also made sure that I did balance that with having girlfriends and doing stuff with girlfriends as well. In fact, the girl that people that I'm mainly in touch with post-university were some of the girlfriends that I made at the same time as well. But yes, it was a very male world.
Yeah. And what was it about that subject that made you want to go and do that degree course specifically?
So I love maths and physics, but I knew I wasn't brilliant enough at either of them. So engineering, you're able to use maths and physics, but you don't have to have quite the mathematical brain that you need to do a maths degree.
Yeah.
So that was sort of why, and I'm also quite a practical person, and I prefer to have outcomes. And engineering, you do outcomes. So yeah, that's why I went into it. I didn't really know what I was doing. I was at a girls' boarding school at the time. I was the first person ever to pass physics A-level in the history of the school. So I didn't really have particularly good careers advice in what I was doing. Far more girls did speech and drama and classics, and none of the other girls went into science. So it wasn't.
So, for the people that don't know, your first job then after uni was as a business analyst for the Met Police.
Yeah.
Which is quite a few miles away from civil engineering. So, was that a conscious decision to get into this world that we all now live in and know as tech, or is it?
Yeah, I loved IT at uni. I knew that at the end of it, I didn't like studying, and your degree in civil engineering is your part 1, then you have to do your part 2s and your part 3s, and you fully get qualified at about 30. And I really wanted to get out and work, and IT was really emerging. So this was in the mid 80s, so it was very, very early. And the civil service were doing training schemes. So I applied and became what's called an executive officer. It was like a graduate role, really, in the civil service. And I happened to be assigned to the Met Police. You didn't know when you went for it where you were going to be placed. And I was placed in the Met Police. And I had the next couple of years there. And it was a fantastic grounding. We were putting in a brand new computer system that we were writing. So we were doing some coding, doing some Infomix coding, some C coding, some Unix stuff, writing. It was crime reporting systems. And then they were on individual Unix boxes that would have maybe 2 or 3 users attached to them. So we'd actually physically go to a factory with a screwdriver, put things together, then go to a police station, set them up in the police station, and then the first couple of days it went live, be with the police as they were learning how to use the system, then also working on a service desk. So this was I think about 9-10 months of rolling, doing different things every day. One day I'd be at site building computers, another day I'd be helping the police, another day I'd be in the service desk. So it was, as a first ever job in IT, it was fantastic. I learned so much.
Yeah. Well, so when you applied for that, you didn't know who the organisation you were going to be working for was, but did you know that it would be that type of role, or was it fairly fluid?
No, I was just going to go into technology. I didn't know what the role would be. No.
Okay. And reflecting back, what do you think are the transferable skills that you had that enabled you to then move into tech? Because I think that's one of people's concerns, is they don't have a tech degree or a tech background. How do they get started?
I think you have to have a very curious mind to work in tech, and you have to be excited about change. I mean, it's the industry that's changed the most, and if you like the way things are done today, then probably tech isn't the right place for you. You need to be somewhere always striving and trying to learn. But also, I think everyone who's in tech will tell you, you don't know when you have a problem, you never quite know how you're going to solve it. And you have to have that flexible mind that you try this, you try that. Is the fault the database? Is the fault the system? Is it the network? Is it and you have to keep trying lots of different things until you fix things. So if you haven't got that sort of curious, inquiring mind and quite logical and love change, then it's probably going to be harder for you.
Yeah, and I'm guessing that being the only girl in the room, that followed through when you got into that role. Did that ever cause you any problems, or was it always the same as at uni? It wasn't really an issue.
Oh no, it was definitely an issue. So at the police, yeah, definitely. There was a lot of discrimination against women, quite active discrimination. So this was in the 80s. It's a long time ago. So people would openly tell you that you shouldn't be doing that job, that you were taking a man's job, things like that. Definitely. The other thing though that I found was really positive is, as I sort of went up and you had large meetings, everyone always assumed that the woman would be the person that would pour the tea and coffee. And I decided I would pour the tea and coffee, because that way you actually get to talk to people and use it as an advantage. And certainly being the only woman in the room, you do stand out, and you've got to use that that's got to be good for you, not see it as a negative. But yeah, it's not very nice being told that you shouldn't be taking a man's job.
No, and hopefully that happens less so in this day and age. I hope so. My first piece of advice for anyone that is facing that is get a new job, rather than think about coping mechanisms. But no, it's interesting to hear how you personally used that to your advantage as opposed to seeing it as a weakness. The fact that you stood out and were able to then create a conversation point based on that is interesting. So your career then progressed. Do you want to just talk to us a little bit about the timeline and how those roles happened and what motivated some of those changes?
So the first one, police, I met my husband and we were in a relatively small team. And so we decided that one of us should change because we'd have been together 24/7, and we didn't think it was great. So I left, and he stayed in the police for a bit longer, not that much longer. So that's why I looked for another job, and I went to British Telecom. It was purely for that reason, and I had a really good time at British Telecom. British Telecom was, for me, a great thing. I was in a sort of research development team. We were developing a lot of quite complex coding, ended up actually doing some assembler stuff, but mainly doing C, which is my sort of love in programming. And that was really a really good place to be. But while I was there, I became far more on the analyst side of it, and I went up, sort of started as a systems analyst, then business analyst, and then eventually ended up in a team that was doing business process re-engineering. So I was the only person from technology in the team, and we were looking at overall business processes that didn't work. So one that was key is when you build a new housing estate, British Telecom were finding that people were going with other providers rather than British Telecom for their phone, and we didn't know why. And we did a lot of work on it, and it was basically that BT did a credit check on you that took 28 days. So everybody moves into a new place, they want a phone straight away. When British Telecom said you can't have it for 28 days, they'd go to somewhere else. So it was about changing the process, which was a relatively simple thing to do, but persuading people that they were better off taking the risk of somebody not paying a bill than they were of not getting the business in the first place. So that's the first time I sort of pulled outside IT a bit. But BT was a great place to work, and I had my children when I was at BT, and I don't know, ladies, if it's true now, but when I was at BT, pretty well no women worked at BT, so they had the best maternity benefits going. They didn't have to give them to anyone. It was brilliant to have my kids.
I know lots of fantastic ladies that work at BT now. I'll have to ask them the question.
I think I was paid pretty well full time for 9 months each time, which was good.
I think it's an interesting point you raised there, which is not something that we preempted, in terms of you talking about what that solution was that might have been seen as a technology fix, but actually it's nothing to do with technology. It's a business solution, understanding the customer need, understanding what's failing, and then applying logic to come up with a solution which might be underpinned by some kind of change in the way that the technology enables a process to happen. But that is absolutely why I would tell people technology is. It's not about the actual applications that you use. It's what the end outcome is and how you solve that business problem.
Totally. That's what motivates me massively about technology. I'm not excited about how many petabytes or any of that sort of thing. I'm excited about what technology does to change lives. That's what's so exciting about technology. Using technology intelligently. That's what keeps me excited about it.
Yeah. So one of the things that stands out to me about your story, I guess, is that sheer confidence and risk-taking attitude. So we've kind of glossed over your job at British Airways, which I'll allow you to talk about, but the one that really stands out to me was the next role after that, where you moved to Emirates to go and live in the Middle East.
Yeah, that's Etihad.
Oh, Etihad, sorry, apologies.
Yeah.
Because that again, unless you're just a glutton for punishment, that to me sounds like being the only woman in IT to then being the only woman in IT in a Muslim country, away from home. It's fraught with reasons not to do it. So
it was so exciting. So yeah, we'll jump over. But I was at BA for 15 years, and was on the IT leadership team at British Airways, and one of my colleagues went over to become the CIO of Etihad. And Etihad at that stage was 7 years old, so incredibly young airline, and the first couple of years hadn't really done very little, and it was growing exponentially. It was growing at 30% a year. And like most companies, when it had started, each department had put in its own IT, so stuff wasn't properly integrated, it wasn't fit for growth, it was a right old mess. So, a great friend of mine, a colleague, went over to become the CIO, and he just said to me, "Do you want to come and play in the sand? Do you want to come out?" And I thought, well, kind of, why not? The children that I'd had when I was at BT, the youngest one was off to university, and a lot of friends I know were complaining that the children never left home. So my husband and I thought, well, we'll leave home and the kids can stay in the house. So we moved over there, and it was an incredible time. So the company was growing 30% a year. It was also buying other airlines, and I'd be told, I mean, it's a small airline, Air Seychelles, relatively small airline, but I was told, right, you've got 3 days, go and assess the IT risks that we'd be taking on if we buy this airline. And so I had to go down to the Seychelles, which is, it's lovely to go to the Seychelles, but it was mainly work. But you go in, the data center is actually a cupboard. It's got an air conditioning above it that drips water onto the computers. So they've got a little tray above it. So I thought, well, there's definitely some IT risks here. But most of it was actually about the contracting. So they buy a lot of the airline services. You deal with these enormous mega IT companies, as Amadeus, Sabre, and companies like that. And I didn't know how to do it, but I learned. People believed that I could do it. We put in a brand new engineering system. We changed the core system that you have in an airline that takes all your reservations and all your passenger information. At British Airways, we'd spent 4 years upgrading one. At Etihad, we were putting in a new one from scratch in 18 months. And what actually happened is we had several hundred people working on that from all over the world. You just bring in people who know what they're doing. So you've got to mix all these different cultures, all these different languages, do the most risky thing you can do, because you're literally taking all your passengers and all that information, putting it from one system, from one supplier to another. It was absolutely crazy. And a week or two before it went live, my husband and I decided we were going to try and have a day off. We hadn't had a day off for probably 7 or 8 months, and we thought we're going to go for it. And we drove down to Dubai, which is only a couple of hours drive from Abu Dhabi, where we were living. And we spent the whole time on the phone back to work. So we decided to give up on the idea of having a day off. So it was not a work-life balance time. It was an incredibly busy time, but it really challenged me, and I grew my career massively during that time. And it was well paid and stuff, and it felt like a fair deal to me. So really hard work, deliver tons, grow tons, but you don't get much time to sit by the pool.
Yeah. And the way that role came about has synergy with how you created your own company in the end, and that is through using your network and having a strong network that would almost present opportunities to you that were too good to say no to, or maybe too scary for some people to say yes to. How have you gone about? Is that a conscious effort you've made to create those networks, or is it in the natural thing that's happened to you?
No, absolutely not. So Gordon was somebody that I worked with really closely in British Airways, and we respected each other and we worked really well together. And I think that's why he took me. And then it happened again. So when I left Etihad after 4 years, I was on a crazy 6-month contract thing. So I had to resign without having another job, because you can't get a job when you've got 6 months notice period. So I thought, well, I'll resign. And I wasn't really telling anyone. So Gordon had moved to Fiji at that stage, but I hadn't really told anyone. But the first thing I knew is I got a contact from a guy that I'd done a lot of work with, who was at Cathay, saying, boy, have we got a job for you at Cathay Pacific. And I was thinking, well, I've never been to the Far East, and I've certainly never been to Hong Kong, but I went there for 2 years, and that was really good. And that was to turn around a failing ERP program. and to take over a team of a couple of hundred people who were just incredibly unhappy and incredibly unmotivated. So that was a brilliant opportunity. But there I just went for a 2-year contract to do that. And then I came back to the UK after that.
Yeah. Have you ever said no to an opportunity, Julie? Because it seems like every time you're offered something, regardless of the risk, you just say yes.
I suppose I have got probably more self-belief than most women. So I think, well, if somebody thinks I can do it, probably I can. And will I be the best at it? No, but I'll make sure that I become the best at it. So no, I love change and I love doing different things. And I sort of joke that my husband and I have been married now 33 years. So I sort of have a stable home life. So I need to have a moving, progressing, changing work life. And it's a lot better for your pension to keep to one husband and change your work than it is to.
So that is fairly rare. It's safe to say that's fairly uncommon. And most of the ladies that I speak to, they feel that because of the fact they need a stable home life, that their job has to mirror that, and they can't take risks and things like that. A, why do you think you're different? And B, how would you talk to a lady that was feeling that she can't take risks and take chances with their career?
So I think one thing that's important, if you do married or have a partner and have children together, it has to be something that you agree jointly, isn't it? You can't have one of you going off without the other. But I think that's identical, whether it's the male or the female, or even if it's the same gender relationship, that you have to agree the balance and agree who's going to do what in a relationship. Say particularly if there are children involved. And my husband has been very happy to support and to follow and to do that kind of stuff, and that's worked really well for us. I was stable. I did say no at one stage. So when my children were at senior school, we had made the decision to send them to private school, and for a while when I was at BA, our outgoings and our income balanced very finely every month. So I had an opportunity to leave BA, but it wasn't necessarily going to work out. So I felt my responsibility then was for the stability of my children who were in their sort of GCSE and A-level years. So I put my plans on hold, but then within months, in fact, slightly before my youngest one did her A-levels, then I moved away. And my children I've got 2 girls, and they're both as equally bold and career orientated as I am.
Yeah. So. And I know we discussed that's one of the common things you do mentoring for us. That's one of the common things that you get asked to support people with is, that imposter syndrome, that lack of self-belief. Yeah. Looking at the other skills that you think are important, the things that got you from being a BA to the head of role that you had at British Airways. What do you think are the important skills that people should be looking to develop, and potentially via mentoring, that are really important for them to be able to separate themselves from being, the super techie or the person who's really good at the technical role and great at what they do, to being that potential leader?
So I think being aware of the environment that you're in, being aware of the power in the environment that you're in, knowing who the future leaders are, making sure that you've got relationships with the right people is incredibly key. So don't just look at who's the current head of this department, because they might be gone. Who are the people that people are aspiring to, spending time with? Where's that going? And one of the things that I've always felt is really key is to sort of have a job too. So you have your day job, and your day job could be being head of the service desk, something like that. But is that really going to get you noticed? So maybe what will get you noticed will be something completely different. So you might be head of the diversity committee for your department and reporting on something that's nobody's day job. It's it's just a secondary thing that you do, but that gets you noticed at the top of the organisation. And there's lots and lots of those number 2 jobs out there, or second jobs out there, that you should have. I think most people should have a second job that gets them noticed, that gets them to be seen at the top of the organisation. You know, volunteering, even if it's something silly as volunteering to run the interdepartmental football game, or something that gets you noticed, that isn't just your day job. And I've always noticed people that do that. It shows quite a lot of, I suppose, commitment to the organisation and commitment to giving back, usually. So yeah, it's always encourage that.
Yeah, no, yeah. These conversations always make me reflect on my own career and things that I've done, and I'm nodding, going, yeah, that's why that happened. 100%, that's why that happened, because I was, putting myself out of my job description slightly and taking on something that, nobody was asking me to do, but it was something that would add value to the business, and you do get seen for that. That's really great. So all that stuff's really interesting, especially the overseas piece, because I don't think we really marketed the fact that you'd had that career. I think a lot of the people that are interested in this video, especially focused on the current piece now about taking the leap from employment into running your own business. So first of all, how did that come about?
So it's a bit of a long story. So I was working at Thomas Cook, and there was a desire before Thomas Cook went into liquidation. There was a plan to separate Thomas Cook. So Thomas Cook was 18 companies. It wasn't one company, it was 18 companies all over the place. So people think it was a UK-based company. It wasn't. It was far more complex than that. But I worked at the head office where the sort of amalgamation was. And I then the plan was to separate Thomas Cook into tour operating companies and airlines. So there were 4 airlines and 14 tour operating companies. And what was happening is this Chinese company called Fosun were going to come in and invest heavily in the tour ops and take those over. And then the airlines were going to be spun off, and the banks that owned the debts were going to take over the airlines. That's the way it was being set up. But the IT was complete spaghetti between the two, well, between all these different organisations. We had this spaghetti IT, and we had various people heading the separation. So somebody doing what we're going to do with finance, where does this bit of debt fit, etc. Somebody doing procurement, and I headed the IT stream, saying, well, how are we going to split that? How do the bills work between the two, etc. So I then worked a lot with the CIOs of the various different organisations. And as I think everyone in this call probably knows, that sadly didn't come to pass, and Thomas Cook went into liquidation. So within a week of that, the CIO, but I and quite a few people in IT were kept on, because we had to repatriate a whole load of customers that were away on holiday when it happened. And then there was an enormous amount of work trying to work out the rebates for people that should have a rebate because their holiday wasn't going to happen. And there's an enormous amount of data that needs to be stored by the government. So we had these liquidators come in and work with us, and about a quarter of the IT department were kept on to do that. All the sort of infrastructure and back office operations people, all the project people went, the application people went, but we stayed on. And the CIO of one of the airlines contacted me. Now that airline is based in Germany and was given sponsorship through the German government to stay operating. So he asked me to set up a company, take the 20 best people from Thomas Cook that worked for me, and service the infrastructure for his airline. And that was a little bit overwhelming, to be honest. But as you say, I like a challenge. But there was a colleague that I'd worked with who'd been doing an enormous amount of infrastructure renewal, so really understood a lot of the detail of the infrastructure. So, and I really enjoyed working with this guy. So I asked him if he wanted to join me. So we set up the company together. We set it up about 2 weeks after Thomas Cook went into liquidation. And then we had to negotiate with the liquidators. We had to tell the guys at Thomas Cook a bit about what we were doing, and then work with the liquidators, because the liquidators are working for the UK government. So they essentially just had to stop all cost as much as they possibly could. But they were incredibly supportive in helping us transition contracts from the liquidating company, essentially, British government, into Condor. So we had an enormous amount of that to set up. We had to work out how to recruit people. We had to work out how to employ people. We had to find offices. We had to set up 24/7 operations for the day that we took over transition. Everything, you know, we didn't even have an email address, anything. So my business partner did a lot of the setting up of the company, and I stayed in Thomas Cook, because within Thomas Cook, I was responsible for the close down of all the different entities. So the close down of France, close down of Germany, all of those different things as well. So I was still doing a sort of full-time job on the close down while he was setting up the company, and then we were gradually transferring services over, and then the company went live. Well, we took over service in January, 2 months before COVID hit. So that was hard. So we had to suddenly transition to everybody working from home. The good bit about that was we never had a piece of paper ever. We've never done any paper processes. Everything has always been in the cloud. So we could instantly send everybody home. Everybody could sort of take their laptops home and work from home. But we'd hardly formed ourselves. So it was quite strange to be a brand new company and then suddenly to not see people. But yeah, that's what happened, and we've grown since. We've taken on other clients since, and we've grown a lot. So we are an investor in people. So we got our Investor in People Silver Award, because people are at the centre of everything that we do. You know, our employees are everything to us. As a managed service provider, it's all about your employees' attitude, their training, their skills, all of that kind of stuff. We're on G-Cloud. We're now on Technology Services 3, so we could start sell to large governments. We got our ISO 27001 last year and our ISO 9001 last year. So we've put a lot of really good foundations in so that we can now really start growing. We've got 5 clients now, but we're now actually working with Kevin probably to try and find a salesperson, because we've never actually sold anything. It's all been people coming to us to buy.
It's kind of one of my questions, really. So a lot of people that want to set up their own business, and this even applies to people that have got a role in IT, and then they kind of graduate from that role in IT to become part of the wider business team and the leadership team at board level. There's a lot of skills there that you have to pick up that weren't part of the day-to-day before, in terms of that, you know, commercial mindedness and being a salesperson, or those kind of things. So how have you gone about adding those to your portfolio? Is it by surrounding yourself with people that have those skills, or have you tried to pick up those skills yourself?
We've had, no, let's start. So for running the company, I think between Richard and I, we're pretty darn good at running a company. You know, we made $1 million profit in our first year. We're quite good at doing the books and managing the people and managing the work and all of that kind of stuff. That we can do. The commercial side of it is incredibly difficult for us. So we have somebody who does social media for us. So we've got up to, I think, 1,400 people following us on LinkedIn, for instance. You know, we're doing some stuff in that space, but we've never had anyone in sales. We've had a few failed telephone campaigns. We got some people to do phoning up on our behalf, and it was just disastrous. Nothing came from that at all. But the first year business, to be honest, when we took over the IT for this airline, we took over IT that was set for 23,000 people to use, and now it's 5,000. So we actually spent a lot of the first year reducing the costs of Condor, and taking on a few other small clients from people who came to us to ask us to do work for them. So it's only really been in the last couple of months that we've started saying, come on, we've got to grow this business. And part of it is nervousness. I mean, I love our business. Today we've had, as Kevin knows, we've had a workshop with University College London looking at some new cloud offerings from IBM, and it's been really buzzy having all the IBM guys and the UCL guys involved, and we asked a lot more people to come in the office, or if they were happy to come into the office. It's very much a voluntary. You can come in and if you want to, but we probably have more people in today than we've ever had, and there's just such a buzz and everybody knows everybody. So partly I'm nervous about us growing because I really like it the way it is, but I know that it needs to grow. I know it needs, we need to probably be 2 or 3 times the size to be a lot more sustainable than we are. Yeah. But at the moment, I know everybody's children, I know, and that's quite nice.
Yeah. I'm going to give the audience a chance to ask any questions, so if they can have a think about that, and if they want to put their hand up or take themselves off camera and off mute. One final question from me, which is something that I know all too well, and I know that you've done a damn good job at it, is recruitment.
Sorry.
Yeah, you should apologise because you don't continue for recruitment because you're so good at it. But I guess the thing that's impressed me is how, being a small company, without that established brand and things, and that general external awareness of your employer brand, that you've managed to attract and grow such a diverse team already. What do you think has been your secret to that?
It's mainly been through recommendation, Kevin. So the guys who come here really enjoy it. So we have a complete no blame culture. If something's going wrong, just tell people, we'll sort it out together, etc. And in where I am, often in the services industry, there's a real shouting, horrible culture. So the guys who come here really enjoy it. Also, we have a strong training thing. So we have never ever turned down any request for training from anybody. And we have a mandatory hour a week, not mandatory, but we ask people to protect an hour a week minimum to do training. That's a big motivator in tech. We've already progressed people from the service desk into technical roles or into account management roles. So people can see that if they join, the only thing that's holding them back is themselves, really. So that's meant that people, when we have a role, we get loads and loads of people apply that know us, or know people that work here. So that's why it's been quite easy so far.
Oh, great. And what you said there about the only thing that's holding your people back is potentially themselves. I think that applies to a lot of women working in tech. And I think for me, the overriding message from this conversation, the fact you've gone from doing a completely non-tech degree into, although a STEM degree, into owning your own IT organization. It's about self-belief. It's about taking chances. It's about, doing all the right things to build relationships with people that can offer those opportunities, but then not being scared to take them when they come up.
Yeah, and it is building those relationships, and you have to put time into building relationships, can't you? You can't just be a user of people. You have to give back to people and things. People remember the person that helped them out when they had a problem, and they remember the person that was there when they needed it, or just ask them how they were feeling when things are rough and stuff like that. It's amazing how small things like that you form relationships, and then you form trust with people, and it's all about trust. So we were out last night with a guy that worked, a company that we work for. He's now moved to a much bigger brand, bigger company. So he was sort of saying, well, yeah, I want to take you guys with me. You give us great service. You respect me. You listen to me. I want you to come to work with me in my new company.
Fantastic.
So yeah, that was good.
So for me, that's the message I want people to take away from this conversation. Is all about, don't be scared to take opportunities that are presented to you. Have that self-belief. If someone's presenting an opportunity to you, it's because they know and they know that you're right for it. And being right for something doesn't mean having done it before. Absolutely not. Every promotion requires you to step up and do something you've not done before. So, feeling like you need to tick all the boxes before you apply for something or put your neck on the line is the wrong attitude, in my opinion.
And I think we've talked about this a bit before, didn't we, Kevin? I mean, I think, when I was at Etihad, they suddenly bought A380s and 787s. So I had to head a project to put in the technology to run 787s and A380s. Now, A380s you have to change a whole load of airline systems because basically they take so many people and they have higher amounts of fuel and stuff like that. So you have to mend a number of small systems. 787s are basically flying computers, and you have to upload and download software patches the whole time, and every time they land you have to take data off them, and it's just massively complex, and it's all about the security of that data. So I took on a team of about 100 people to put this in. We had to put it in by a specific date. Did I know what I was doing? Did I? Heck. But and there were plenty of times when you feel a bit sick, you think, crikey, I'm out of my depth, and you feel sick and you don't know what you're doing. But actually, you do. You just got to break the problem down, get the right people around you, and you can do anything. Why not? It's just about understanding what's needed, and say that the key skill, and you touched on it a bit, Kevin, is having the right team, having the right people, because with the right people you can deliver anything. The most important job I think you do as a leader or as a business owner is recruitment. That's the most important thing, is getting the right people through the door.
Wow. So I think there's 2 or 3 really fantastic messages to leave on there. So thank you very much, Julie. If that isn't inspirational to people, I don't know what will be. So I really appreciate your time. You hopefully go and celebrate today's successes, and we'll catch you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.